my husband, like myself, was born in Bedford to immigrants from Italy. My father-in-law came over in 1951 on a 4-year contract. I think they were given £1 as well to travel with at the time, but then they were tied to this contract 4 years in the brickyards. If they didn't adhere to that, they would be shipped straight back home. So he was based in Bedford. My mother-in-law came over, she was 19, and she went straight into service in London, and she was actually employed by Lady Margaret Spencer, who is the sister of Earl Spencer. So she worked for Lady Diana's auntie, okay? And they really took her in, treated her so well. Although she was downstairs staff, Lady Margaret spoke some Italian from her time spent in Tuscany and the rest of it. And she was almost like a second mother to her, making sure that she didn't go out with wet hair and that she had her meals, etc., etc. She even went to my mother-in-law's wedding. Now, she got married at the church in Clerkenwell Road in London, and it was a very small Italian. They were immigrants, they had no money. She'd met her husband at the Italian dances that they used to arrange in London. So we've got photographs at home of Lady Margaret on the steps of Clerkenwell Road Church attending her domestic sort of wedding, which was really lovely. It said a lot about the sort of family she must have come from. She was also there to witness Lady Fiona, that's Lady Margaret's daughter, her coming out as a debutante. And I think she was one of the last set of debutantes. And she often talks about how for that first year in London, she'd come from a small village and she was seeing these wonderful teenagers coming to the house every night or going out every night, and she'd be serving them the meals. Once she got married, they decided to locate in Bedford, so to move in Bedford, and that's it. Then the son was born and I met him and married him. How about that?
My father came over from Caserta, southern Italy, in 1952. When they came over, quite a few, like my sisters just mentioned, they came over on this 4-year contract. They had to work at the brickworks. My father's group stayed at Kempston Hardwick Barracks, which used to be the old soldiers' barracks, I think, and they stayed there for a while. Whilst there, his bunkmate just happened to be my mother's cousin and had a photograph of my mother. And this cousin kept telling him that my mother was too good for him, but he persisted. And they started corresponding, and then he went to Italy, and they were married, and she came over in 1953. He carried on working at the brickworks. My mother worked at the hospital in the linen room as a domestic. She worked at Meltis. And my father carried on at the brickworks. She worked at British Home Stores. She had all these different jobs. They finally saved up and managed to get a house in beginning of 1956 in Westbourne Road in Queen's Park. You know it well, Queen's Park. And then I came along in the May. My sister came along in 1960 and my brother in 1965.
In terms of work, I know my mum said she worked at Moggahanger Hospital for a period of time. I don't know chronologically speaking what job came first or whatever. So she worked there. My dad, I'm not sure, I don't think he did the brickworks. He didn't go to Stuartby, as far as I'm aware. But he did lots of manual work. He worked for a long time at Michelin's, so he was a tie fitter. Then my mum, I remember she said when she was pregnant with my brother, because my brother's older than me, she was working in a rubber factory. I remember her telling me that, but she said when she was pregnant, she didn't realise she was pregnant, but she felt sick. She was nauseous and she had to keep on taking breaks and everything. And he was born in Northampton, my brother, so they must have had some kind of lodgings in Northampton for a short period of time.
Our mothers are sisters. Our fathers were best friends, and they came over from a place in Italy called Viedri sul Mare, which is beautiful. And they came over in 1951 with a similar kind of contract, 4-year contract again. They had nothing, came over with a suitcase. I remember my father telling me about the barracks that he was living at. And I remember him saying the work was really hard. They used to call it piecework because you were, every piece, every brick or whatever, you were paid on the volume. And he found that very, very hard. He worked there for 4 years and then moved on into engineering, actually. That's where he moved on to Robertson's in Ampthill Road is one of the places where he worked. Because brickworks was not for him, he found it too tough. That was my father. and he came over single. My mother came over with her sister in 1953. They were both illiterate, so couldn't read or write. And they were both from Sicily, a very different part of Italy. Very poor, with nothing. And they went on to London and worked in service, both of them at different places in London.
We went to the normal Catholic schools. We went to St Gregory's, went to St Thomas More. St Thomas More, I was in the second year of after it had been built, so it was still in construction, because everyone had gone to, I think, as their upper school. My brother went to Pilgrim. Yeah, he went to Pilgrims. My mum then started doing cleaning jobs. She used to work at the town hall as a cleaner, and I remember her taking us, me and my sister, to the town hall, giving us like little cloths, and we were dusting around and emptying the bins and things like that.
My mum always said that she never ever wanted to go in a rented accommodation in Bedford. She said to Dad, if I come to Bedford, we have to have our own house. And they bought the house before they got married. Yeah, they bought the house before they got married. And they only got married, your mum and Dad got married in October 55, and my mum and Dad then got married in the December 55. And I'll always remember that, because I'm not allowed to say, but they had...
Yes.
Yeah, my mum and Dad had a lovely time at their wedding.
Yes.
Really lovely time. And I've got lovely photos of them dancing together, and yeah, it's just beautiful. But yes, a lot of the things are mirrored. My mum did then go to work at the hospital, domestic. Dad left on the 4-year contract as the day finished. He hated it there, and he left and went to, I think he went actually to the railway in Bedford, but only for a little while because he didn't like it there. He didn't like a lot of manually work, Dad. He just didn't like that sort of thing. Both of them, Mum and Dad, went to work for Unilever in Sharnbrook, and they worked there for a long time. They used to get the bus in at the top of Shakespeare Road, get the bus there at 8 o'clock in the morning, go to Unilever, work all day, come back at 5 o'clock, finish there at 5, come back 5:30. I always used to remember, because then I'd come back from school, and of course I had my auntie looking after me, and that's why they went to work together, because I was looked after by my auntie the whole time, and it was possible for them to do that. And again, they worked like everybody worked all the time. No signing on, no in between jobs. No, none of that. No, none of that at all.
My mother, when she got pregnant with me, my father, whose mother had died in childbirth, didn't want her to work. And so she started to become the childminder for all the Bedford women, Italian women that worked. They worked at the Immigrant, they worked at Meltis, they worked at the hospital. Your mum worked at Unilever for a while, and my mother became the childminder. Our house was always full of children, from just born through to 5 or 6. And yeah, she always had 8 or 9 children on the go. This is the days before Ofsted reports. Yes, you understand. Yes, yeah, it was that kind of she had a big breakfast room and everybody just kind of mucked in, somebody on a potty. That's my memory of childhood. Somebody changing a nappy, somebody playing in a corner. But yes, my father just had this thing of wanting her at home, and that's what my mother did.
You could go to the market, and the Italians also. The Italians had this little hub, and to be fair, Libby has kept that little bit of a dream alive, because people do go there and they have a coffee and they have a chat about the old times, and they're moaning about the aches and pains.
Fond memories of growing up in Bedford. We were all like a little family at school. All the Italian friends used to hang about with each other, but we had an upbringing that was very strict. But the boys seemed to get away with more than the girls did. So yeah, the girls were basically, domesticated and had to do all the housework and everything, whereas the boys could go out on their bikes and roam around and pretty much had freedom.
being brought up in Bedford was amazing, purely because the Italian community in Bedford is second to none. We knew everybody. You could go to town on a Saturday and you would see loads and loads and loads of people that you knew, always. And it's just incredible to have had that sort of upbringing, because, yeah, we did have the best of both worlds. We had Italian friends, we had English friends, we had black friends, we had Indians, and it was just a melting pot of a load of different fusions of, let's say, cultures that you probably wouldn't get if you had a sheltered life somewhere else. So I feel quite blessed and happy that, you know, I've lived here. Well, I've been here ever since.